Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Gearing Up for Giving Tuesday. Before we dive into today's topic, we're going to go over just a few housekeeping details. So all of your phones are muted. That means that if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, just feel free to enter them into the chat. Devin is hanging out in our chat. Devin is one of our ClubExpress team members, and he's going to be there to answer all of your questions for you live. So you don't need to wait until the end of today's webinar in order to ask those burning questions. So a recording of today's webinar will be available on our YouTube channel as well as on our Cool Stuff page. So to find a copy of today's webinar, just head to clubexpress.com, click on Cool Stuff, then click on Webinars, and you'll be able to see a list of recently recorded webinars. You'll also, of course, be able to find those on our YouTube channel. So when you're viewing one of our great webinars or fantastic tutorials, be sure to click that subscribe button. So that subscribe button is going to be your key to getting notified as soon as we put a new video or tutorial up on our YouTube channel. So make sure that you are subscribed so you stay up to date on all of the changes that we're making. And if you are a current ClubExpress customer, we would absolutely love to hear from you. Go to clubexpress.com/reviews and leave us a review. Tell us what you're enjoying, what you like about the software. Those reviews help other potential customers learn a little bit more about ClubExpress, what we do, and why our customers love us. So take just a couple of minutes and head to clubexpress.com/reviews and leave a review on any of the sites that you see listed. And finally, we have a really exciting announcement from the ClubExpress team, and that's for our ClubExpress Bootcamp. So did you happen to miss out on training when you signed up with ClubExpress, or maybe you have an election coming up soon and you want to get all of your new officers trained at one time? Sign up for our ClubExpress Bootcamp. Our bootcamp is launching December 8th, 2021. That's this year. And it's a one-day training extravaganza with more than a dozen hours of content. You're going to hear from experts here at ClubExpress, get basic and advanced training, tips, and insight. The price is $199 per club, but if you sign up before November 8th, you save 20%. And what's even better is you pay one fee for your entire club. So that means that for one fee, all your administrators and coordinators can attend as many sessions as they'd like. And at the risk of sounding like an infomercial, but wait, there's more. You don't just get to see the live sessions. You and all of your administrators and coordinators will have exclusive access to the recorded content afterward. And any admins and coordinators that you assign in the future will also have access to the recordings. So for more information on the bootcamp or to sign up, you can find more details in a couple of different places. You can go to your own club's control panel, click on the support tab, and take a look at that bootcamp panel. You'll see links to view more information about the bootcamp, to register, and to view what our sessions are going to be like. You can also go to clubexpress.com/bootcamp to find more information there. Let's dive right into Gearing Up for Giving Tuesday. In today's webinar, we're going to be talking about the things that you can do today to have a successful Giving Tuesday this year and each year after. We're going to talk about determining your strategy. Who are you targeting? What's your goal? And how are you going to track your progress? The different types of donors that you have and how your outreach should be different to all of them. We'll talk about a crowdfunding toolkit. So everything that you should include in a kit for your members or non-members, should you decide to reach out to them to raise funds on your behalf. And what do you even say? So what you should be saying to your members and how you should target your message based on who you're speaking to, whether you're speaking to a recurring donor, a large donor, or a corporate sponsor, and so on. And then, of course, we will go over all of the great ways that you can keep track of your donors, including our favorite reports for donations. Let's dive into our strategy. We're going to talk about who we're targeting. We're going to talk about crowdfunding. We're going to talk about all of these things. And we're also going to take a look at the fund that we've set up on our demo site that we're focusing on today. When you think about who you're targeting and you're targeting your members, You can ask to donate, but you can also make sure to ask them if their employers match donations. So we'll take a look at making sure that your donation fund is set up to include information on employer donations if their employer offers that. Your members are also eligible to set up recurring donations. So we're going to take a look at recurring donations within our software as well. And remember that adding recurring donations as an option to your club is not something that we charge extra for. It's just a quick call to support. So remember to call support today and get that enabled. Now, when we're talking about reaching out to non-members, whether you have just a handful of contacts or hundreds, those non-members might end up being your largest source of one-time donations. But also consider that when you're talking to a non-member, your message might be slightly different. And of course, we're going to talk about all of those outreach messages that you can send today. When we talk about sponsors, if you're currently offering sponsorships for your club or association, that's great. In the near future, we're going to be hosting a webinar on how to set up a framework on your website to accept sponsorships. So be sure to look out for that. But even at that base level, corporate donors, local businesses, those are all areas that you can look to for donations. And we'll talk about what that outreach looks like as well. We'll go over a crowdfunding toolkit. So if you aren't familiar with crowdfunding, it's become increasingly popular in recent years. It's an amazing way to get your members to do some of that legwork for you and to reach a ton of people outside of your organization's network. So let's think, for example, that each of your members has their own circle of friends and family. Let's say you have 100 members and each of those has 200 friends on Facebook. Now, let's be less than generous and say that only a quarter of those members are interested in crowdfunding for you. That's still 5,000 people that you don't know, that you've never spoken to, but they can be reached with a simple social media post. So we're going to talk about some crowdfunding strategies. We'll take a look at a crowdfunding toolkit that we have set up on our demo club here in just a moment. And of course, we're talking about social media. So even if you aren't interested in crowdfunding, social media should be part of your strategy. Now, if you are launching social media campaigns, just make sure that you're monitoring those. Consider what your strategy should be, what you're asking for, and making sure that you're checking when those campaigns are starting and ending so you can take a look at reports to see whether or not those campaigns were successful. And we'll talk about that when we take a look at those favorite donation reports that we have here at ClubExpress. How are you going to measure success? So success doesn't look the same for everyone. Maybe success for you is a monetary goal. If that's the case, consider whether or not you're letting your members and non-members know what that goal is and how close you are to it. And we'll go over making sure that you do that when you set up your donation fund. Maybe it's not a monetary goal. Maybe you're looking to just gain a new number of recurring donors. Maybe you're even looking to just gain new members. If instead of donating money to a fund, you're looking for members to volunteer their time for a cause, maybe you want to have more members sign up as part of Giving Tuesday. Maybe you're launching a really big volunteering event. So just making sure that you have established what your goal is so you know how to measure your own success. We're going to talk about those key reports to pay attention to when your campaign has concluded and analytics. So if you haven't already taken advantage of Google Analytics for your website, you absolutely should. So we'll go into a little more detail in a moment, but Google Analytics can really help you hone in on which of your tactics were worthwhile and which channels may have brought the most donations for you. So I'm going to switch gears here and we're going to take a quick look at our demo club and the fund that we have set up here. Now I'm logged in as Martin Smith. Martin Smith is our favorite administrator for the Northwest Balloon Club. So I'm going to navigate to my website's menu and take a look at the donations page. Now, I have set up a fake donation fund called Science in Flight. So this is the fund that the Northwest Balloon Club has established to foster STEM education for children in the local community. So when I'm taking a look at this Science in Flight donation card. I'm looking at this from my members' perspective. So I have configured this to include just a brief description of what the mission is for that particular fund. I have opted to show the progress that we've received towards our goal. So our goal is there in big, bold letters. Everyone who's donating to it can see how close we are to that goal. And that might prompt them to maybe make a bigger donation or support that cause just a little bit harder to get us closer to our goal. We have the option to donate once or make a recurring donation. So let's take a look at just a couple of items on the back end. We won't go through setting up an entire donation fund. We do have plenty of tutorials and webinars available on donations. So what I'm going to do is just take a look at some of the items that you should pay attention to when you're setting up that particular fund. So we can see at the very top, we have our Science and Flight Fund. And I'll select the edit icon to take a look at how I have configured that. Now, at the top, I've included that basic description. I can include a little extra formatting. I've chosen just to keep it relatively simple. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to add a fund coordinator to this particular fund. Now, adding a fund coordinator is going to enable a handful of things for me. It's going to allow that particular coordinator to get emails whenever someone has donated to that particular fund. And it gives that point of contact for anyone who has any questions. So whoever might be donating to this particular fund, whoever might have questions for these items, those are the people that you're going to want to have contact them. So I'm going to select Jenny Cho. Jenny Cho has helped out Northwest Balloon Club a lot in recent years, and this is a cause that's close to her heart. So she's managing all of this. Now, when I've added Jenny Cho as a fund coordinator, I get the option to notify Jenny when a donation is made. So that means that Jenny is going to get a notification every time someone makes a donation. That fund is active. I have allowed non-members to donate to this fund. So, of course, if you're looking to gain as much exposure as you can, make sure that you're allowing non-members to donate to your fund. I'm allowing recurring donations. Now, I mentioned previously that this is something that you can enable on your site. So when you're configuring a fund, if you see this option and it's grayed out, give our support team a call and they can turn that on for you on the back end. Again, it's not an extra cost to be able to accept recurring donations. It is something that we just have to switch on for you. Once you enable that, your members are going to be able to set up a donation on a recurring basis that they choose, whether that's monthly or quarterly. They choose the amount and they save a credit card to their member account so that they get charged on that recurring basis. We also can include a minimum and maximum amount. And we've included a suggested amount. So that suggested amount is one that can be based on something that you've seen in your reporting, in your analytics that you've collected, or it can just be an amount that you would like to get as a minimum amount. So instead of asking for a minimum amount of $5, I've just suggested it. It's a little less invasive. Now, what you can do is take a look at the donation history from your members and non-members and see where most of those donations happen to lie. What's that dollar amount range that seems to be the most popular? Maybe it's not $5. Maybe you frequently get $10 or $15 donations. So consider upping that suggested amount or changing it based on what your reporting is telling you. What are your members and non-members interested in giving, and suggest that amount. We have our goal and we are showing our goal because we want people to be a little more involved in the mission. We want them to be able to see our progress and we want them to be able to feel like they're really making a difference. Finally, we have a handful of additional options that we can configure here. Now, we have additional tutorials and webinars available on financial accounts, but essentially what I wanted to do was set up a financial account, which is going to allow me to parse out anyone who has donated for Giving Tuesday and allow me to see anything that I've received on this Giving Tuesday. I want every single donation that's made through this fund to be tagged with Giving Tuesday donors. That means that when I go to run my reports to see how successful all of my campaigns were, I can pull out just my Giving Tuesday donors and see exactly how much money was brought in just from that particular item. And the same goes for mailing list categories. Now, we have default mailing list categories set up for all of those portions of your site. We have default categories for events and so on. But I've changed this and I've added a mailing list category for Giving Tuesday donors because next year I want to be able to reach out to those folks and let them know about our 2022 Giving Tuesday donation campaign. And I also want to be able to reach out to them, maybe a few weeks after Giving Tuesday with a full update on the progress that we made towards our goal and what our impact has been. So making sure that you make it as easy as possible going forward to reach out to those members and to build your reports. So what we're doing is we're setting up this entire framework now that you can use this year and going forward. So if it seems like a lot of work, just remember that you're really only doing this one time. You're setting up that framework and you're gearing up for Giving Tuesday 2021 and beyond. So this is how we've set up our fund. Now, let's talk about, once we've talked about our strategy, I want to talk about our crowdfunding toolkit. So I mentioned that one of the options that you have is to ask your members to go to bat for you. So we're going to take a look at a few items that we've set up to help donors make their decision to donate or crowdfunders make their decision to help our mission. So when you are asking people to reach out on your behalf, you can't just send them into battle completely unarmed. You want to make sure that you give them all the tools they need so that this is as easy a job as they can find. Remember that your members and maybe non-members are doing the legwork for you, so you can put just a little bit of extra time in to get that going for them. Let's talk about your mission statement. So your members might know enough about your organization to be a part of it, but they might not know those finer details of your mission. So maybe they haven't kept up to date on your newsletters or your journey, and they might not have all of the information they need. They're, of course, going to be so much more effective if they can reiterate what your mission is to their friends, to their coworkers, to their family. So make sure that you are really clear on what your goal is, what you're using your funds for, and what the impact is of your goal on your community or on your organization. So what you can also create is a social media posting kit. So your members can, of course, just link to your website in a simple post on Facebook, but let's give them a little bit of extra help. Your members may have never done anything like this before. So one of the roadblocks to them accepting it is they may not know what to say, what to post. Remember that you're gaining free outreach by harnessing your members as crowdfunders. So take just a little time to prepare a few items for them. In addition to your mission, draft up a handful of post taglines that they can use, maybe 3 to 5 taglines that they can just copy and paste. A handful of images that they can share, and we'll take a look at a couple that we've created. Maybe create a hashtag that you want to use just for your organization so you can maybe track that on social media as well. And of course, you might want to think about offering incentives to crowdfunders. So if you are asking for crowdfunders, they might decide to do this on their own without any incentive. But if you want to think about whether or not to offer incentives, some ideas would be holding a contest and awarding the top performers. So we all remember, maybe when we were in school and we had to sell items for, school charities or school organizations, there was usually a small prize that the students would get for, raising the most amount of money or selling the most amount of items. So think about a contest for your top performers, maybe a small gift to those who are going to participate. You can offer different things to your members, like a discount coupon that they can use for events, for renewals. You could even offer them free events from your club or merchandise from your club. So let's take a look at how we have set up a few items on our site to give our members all of the information that they need in order to go to bat for us. So I am going to take a look at my Science in Flight page. So I've created a custom page just for my Giving Tuesday campaign here. Now, this custom page, of course, was something that I created just using our page builder tools. I have a little banner at the very top, and I have some info right underneath that. So now within this page, I'm talking about a lot of things. I'm talking about where all of those donations are going. I'm talking about, how valuable just a simple $15 donation can be. And I'm also letting people know that they have the ability to sign up to be a crowdfunder, and they have everything that they need right on our site. And then finally, I have some info on being a sponsor, followed by just some general info about the donation fund. So all of this is already on my site. It's just sitting there. The page did not take me very long to create. Now, if I'm interested in signing up to be a crowdfunder, I can click my button that's going to take me to a folder that I've set up in my document library called my Giving Tuesday Crowdfund Pack. So within this crowdfund pack, I have created an info sheet, and I've also created social media images that my members and non-members can download, save to their devices, and upload to Facebook or Twitter or wherever they might have the most followers and feel like they might make the most impact. So within my Giving Tuesday info sheet, I'll go ahead and download a copy of this. And all I've done is just highlight the background of the fund. And I've given them some ideas on how they can ask for donations and what they might want to say. I've included some contact information for Jenny Cho. She is that fund coordinator. And I've also listed out those perks that my members can get once they have signed up to be a crowdfunder. So this is something that I created really simply in Word. I did not have any fancy tools that I used to create this, and it gets my message across. So this is just one sheet that I've created for my crowdfunders. And I also created those social media cards. So within each of these, all this is just a quick image, and I'll go ahead and pull this over so that you can see it. Now, this is just a photo that I got for free. And I didn't use any fancy photo editing tool. I didn't use Photoshop. I used Microsoft Paint. So I did that because I wanted to show that you have all of the tools that you need to create these items to really take your entire Giving Tuesday campaign to the next level. You don't have to pay for a lot of fancy software. Everything that you need is something that you already have. Now, in order to get these photos, I just went to one of my favorite free stock photo sites. If you want more info on where you can get great looking stock photos, really professional quality photos, make sure that you check out our webinar that we hosted recently, ClubExpress for Content Creators. We go over a lot of the options that you have for getting more content on your site, and it includes some tips on where to get those photos. And again, I did not spend a lot of money on any of these items. I used everything that I had already in order to create these items for my members. So keeping in mind that, this isn't going to take a lot of time. It's not going to take a lot of money or effort. It's just going to take just a few moments of your time to make sure that you can have the most successful Giving Tuesday that you've ever had. So we talked about our crowdfunding toolkit. We took a look at the items that I've included. I included my mission statement. I included those images, and I let my members know what they were getting out of it, as opposed to just what they were going to be doing as well. Now, let's talk about donor outreach. Now, when you're reaching out to those 3 separate groups that we talked about at the top of our webinar, we're talking about members, non-members, and sponsors. Now, when you are reaching out to your members, we have sort of a subset of groups that we're reaching out to. We're reaching out to recurring donors and one-time donors, and then we're also giving them those crowdfunding tools. So when you have a recurring donor, you might look at them and say, well, they're already donating on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, so I can't really ask them to donate again. But you absolutely can. You can ask them in a really non-invasive and polite way to consider making an additional one-time donation in support of Giving Tuesday. I personally donate to a lot of nonprofits, and I will occasionally get an email asking me to donate an additional one-time fee, maybe around the holidays or around a special campaign, in addition to recurring donations that I have. So these are options that you have. This is a mission that is something that's going to mean a lot to your members. It's going to mean a lot to your community. So make sure that you're doing as much as you can. Consider saying, if all of our monthly donors increase their contribution by $5, we'd reach our goal in 6 months. Give them metrics, give them something to hold on to, and consider asking for an additional amount or asking them to raise their recurring donation. Even with your one-time donors, those one-time donors can turn into recurring donors. They already know about your mission and they understand how important funding is. So consider reaching out to them and seeing if they're interested in setting up a recurring donation. Now, with your non-members, the non-members in your database marked as donors, those are all obviously people who have donated to your club one or more times. They're obviously interested in your mission. Now, hopefully you're including your non-members in your organization's newsletter, or maybe you're even sending non-members a completely separate newsletter with content that's dedicated to them. They may have been keeping up to date on what you're doing as an organization, so part of your job is already done. And if you haven't, that's where our next step is going to come in, and we're going to talk about what you even say to these donors when you contact them. Consider asking them to join as members. So there are dozens of reasons why you might want to increase your membership. And in this case, the biggest reason is to increase the number of recurring donors that you have. Maybe your goal isn't heavily looking for donations, but rather volunteers, right? So we talked about, a monetary goal versus a non-monetary goal. If you want to increase membership so that you can have more volunteers for the events that you host or for the, events that you take part in your community, make sure that you're asking people to join your organization. And especially then they'd be able to donate to you on a recurring basis. And as I mentioned previously, we are going to be hosting a webinar soon on managing sponsors through your website. So we're going to talk about all of the ways that you can procure sponsors, highlight the ways that you can spotlight them on your website. But look out for those sponsors for larger donations. So they're likely going to bring in a large source of funding for you. And they're people that you can count on year after year, even outside of Giving Tuesday. Reaching out to your community is a great way to work on your mission, build those relationships, and it might help those local businesses gain exposure through your own organization. So let's take a look at what you're even going to say to these members. And I want to take a look at a few emails that I've created just within our blast emailing tool using some of the same language and some of the same photos that I've used on my custom page that I created as well. So I'm going to go into our communications tab, right into our blast emailing feature, and take a look at how I've created a handful of emails. Now, these emails are just drafts that I've created. And what I essentially did was I created one and continued to make copies of it because I wasn't changing very much of the content. I was customizing it a little bit, but the idea is that you want to make the system work for you. Again, this is something that's built into your site already. It's something that you have access to. So really harness the ability to send out those curated emails to all of the different types of donors that you'll be reaching out to. Now, I talked about the fact that you should have different statements for all of the donors that you're contacting. You're going to want to contact people who have maybe donated one time, people who have donated on a recurring basis. So this first email that I have, the subject line is, "Do you have 3 minutes?" My subject line doesn't even mention that I'm asking about a donation, I'm asking for money. It doesn't mention anything like that. It's a really quick, simple line, and it creates a curiosity point for the user. So one of the things that, we can talk quite a bit about would be marketing tactics and making sure that your subject line grabs your reader's attention. So "Do you have 3 minutes" is a great way to get any of your members or non-members to take a look at your email. So I'm going to select the edit icon and take a look at how I have configured this email. Let's take a look at my distribution list that I have set up here. So right now, I am emailing anyone who has donated to my Science and Flight Fund in the last year. And that's just the blanket donation. So I'm not separating out anyone who has maybe set up a recurring donation, anyone who has maybe sent in a rather large donation. I'm sending everyone this particular email. And what I'm actually asking them to do is politely to answer a donor survey. And we're going to take a look at the donor survey that we've created and talk about why it's so important to ask your donors for more information about themselves and more information about why they may have chosen to donate to you in the first place. But we've included a link to take our donor survey right in the top of the email. We're letting them know that we're grateful for their donation, letting them know what our goal is this year. So we've included, a picture from maybe one of our events that we hosted, telling them about the impact. We still are including our donate button within that email. So if donations are a really huge part of your organization, consider including the donate button in the footer that you are sending out in your email. So you might have a closing statement that includes a signature from your president or a signature from the chair of that donation fund. Include that donate button. It does not take any extra work to include that button. And you never know, it might just, create that extra pathway for a member or a non-member to get to that donation fund on your site, as opposed to having to think of that themselves. So put it right in front of their faces in that email. Now, let's take a look at another email that I've created that I've set up just a little bit differently. So the second email that I've created, we're so happy that you contributed. And I've configured my distribution list a little bit differently. So my subject line is just, we're so happy you're contributed. Now, this is going to people who contributed once. And if I take a look at my distribution list, I am including all of my Giving Tuesday donors, everyone who contributed on Giving Tuesday. But I went through and I manually excluded people who decided to donate on a recurring basis. Now, this is just one way that you can work with the distribution list. And I'll actually get to my favorite way in the next email that I've created. But let's talk about this way just to give you an idea of the different options that you have. I've included everyone who donated on Giving Tuesday. So maybe I've used that mailing list category, not just in one donation fund, but perhaps I use that mailing list category for a couple of funds because I wanted to track everyone who donated. Maybe I had a handful of different funds that I placed on my site. I wanted to gather everyone who donated to everything and exclude those recurring donations because within my email, I am asking for that survey. I'm asking them to donate, but I've highlighted that I'm asking them to donate again. So I want to exclude those recurring donors because they are donating on a recurring basis. And I just want to get those one-time donors to donate one more time. I'm still asking them to take that donor survey because that is really important to my organization. And we'll talk about why that's so important in our next section. But now let's get to our last email that we've configured, and we'll take a look at how we have changed the subject line and who that's actually going to. So the subject line for this email is, you're someone we can count on. That's because this particular email is going to everyone who has set up a donation on a recurring basis. So I'm highlighting the fact that we know that we are receiving basically scheduled donations from these members, right? I'm constantly receiving funds from these folks, but I still do want to ask them to maybe consider an additional one-time donation. So I've changed my content just a little bit, and I'm still asking them to take that survey, but that's not the real focus of this particular email. What I really want is for them to consider that additional one-time donation. And I've also included some information about crowdfunding. So One of the things that you can do within all of these emails is not just to let them know what your mission is, not just to highlight maybe what your goal is for this year, but include letters from supporters. So, anyone that you may have helped through the work of whatever charity you might be working with or the work in your community. Spotlight your crowdfunders, brag about your impact. So we have here our fake donation fund has a fake crowdfunder, and we've included her photo as well as a quick statement from her highlighting how easy it was for her to crowdfund, how great it made her feel, how much she raised, just to give a real face to that idea that you're asking your members and non-members to participate in, letting them know that you do have others who are crowdfunding, that you have had some success with this, and that it is something that they can handle on their own. So, the way that I have actually set up my distribution list is I've based it off of an additional member data question. So, instead of emailing everyone who donated to a specific fund or donated within a specific time period, and then going through and excluding anyone who has donated on a recurring basis or looking for those individual members and finding them and adding them individually to this list, I've created an additional member data question that is visible to administrators only that we use to track who's made a recurring donation and who's made a large donation. The way that I've added this is I want to send this email to anyone whose answer to the donations question is science and flight recurring. That means that everyone that has made a recurring donation, I've gone in and checked that item off for that additional member data question. And I'm able to parse that out and email just those folks. So we're going to talk about this particular question and how I've set that up when we talk about tracking before and after. So donation reports are available. Donor surveys, we're going to talk about donor surveys and all of the ways that you can keep track of all of the items that your members might be donating. So let's take a look and start off with our question that we've created within this particular email. Now I'm going to pop over to our control panel, take a look at our people tab. And under additional member data, let's take a look at the question that I've configured here. My question sits right at the top. It's called donations. And I'm going to select the edit icon to see exactly what I'm asking and how I've configured this. I call this donation and my answer type is a checkbox because I want to be able to check off multiple items at the same time. So you'd want to avoid maybe using radio buttons for this or a select list because I may end up checking off more than one item for more than one person. Now, within this question, I've included some simple instructions to administrators and coordinators that we're using this as a way to track donors and the types of donations that they're making. We use the list to feed blast emailing and instructions on when they're using this list. So what qualifies as a large donation? Anyone who's made a recurring donation. And at the very bottom, I've entered in my donation options. I'll expand this box just a bit here. So all of the options that you have here are recurring donations and large donations for each of these funds. And the way that I've structured this is anytime someone makes a recurring donation, remember that our fund coordinator is going to be notified when that happens. Now, you can give your fund coordinator access to the people manager so that they'd be able to go in and mark these items off themselves. And we'll go through how to do that in just a moment. But you can also run reports to see which donors have signed up for recurring donations and ask someone who already has access to the people manager to mark this off on your behalf. So there are a lot of ways that you can set up your own particular process and your best practices. It's just what fits for your organization. When I scroll down, I am allowing comments for this particular question. So if someone has to add in some additional notes as it relates to a donation that's being made, I've given them the option to do that. It's going to apply to all member types. So anyone can add in that extra info for that particular question. It's visible to administrators only. Now, what that means is that only administrators can go in and see that question, see the answers to that question, and actually answer that question for themselves. The member won't see it, and the member won't be able to mark themselves off as having made a recurring donation or making a large donation. This is something that is going to be for your admin purposes only, for your reporting purposes, and for your blast emailing purposes. So now I've configured this entire question. Let's take a look at how we actually use it using our people manager. So I'm going to go into the control panel into my people manager. Now, I could have ended up here in a couple of different ways. Perhaps I happen to be the fund coordinator and I got a notification that someone signed up for a recurring donation and I want to find them within my people manager. Or perhaps it's, I'm just going through a report and looking for all of the people who signed up for these items. So I can go ahead and I can find the member who has made that particular donation. Let's say that Fred has actually made a pretty sizable donation. So I'm visiting Fred's profile because that's how I access his additional member data questions. I'll select additional member data. And I'm faced with all of those questions in addition to the admin only question that I've configured. So I want to note that Fred actually made a very large donation to Science in Flight. And at the very bottom, maybe in the comments, you want to be able to note the date that that particular donation was made. So I can say that maybe on July 28th, 2021, Fred donated $600. And so now what that means is that if I get ready to send an email out to all of my large donors for my Science in Flight option, Fred's going to be included in that email. Of course, so will everyone else where I've selected Science in Flight large. And you can use that for recurring donations. The implications for this type of question are really endless. So consider adding this as part of one of your best practices or part of your process for keeping track of those donors on Giving Tuesday. So this is going the route of setting up that additional member data question. Remember that I'll go ahead and save this. You're able to run reports on this information as well. If I go back into my control panel, I can easily see all of the answers just by selecting the answers icon within my additional member data section. So remember that that's a way that you can easily keep track of who has made what donations. So taking a look at when those donations were made, how much was actually included, the reporting options are there for you as well. Now let's talk about those reports. Let's talk about the reports that would be helpful, whether you're talking about recurring donations or one-time donations. So we'll go into our Money tab and visit donations from the administrator's perspective. Now, within each fund, you have a series of reports to run donations by name, by date. The report that you'd want for, being able to judge whether or not any of your campaigns were helpful or were fruitful for you would be donations by date. So let's say that you maybe paid for a lot of Facebook advertising over the course of a week. Try running that report to see if you had an uptick in donations over that week while you were running those ads to see if that campaign may have been successful for you. Or maybe you weren't even advertising on Facebook. Maybe you were just posting a lot over the course of a week or a month leading up to Giving Tuesday. Make sure that you're tracking that information, that you're taking a look at those dated reports. Now, of course, you can go in and you can run these donations by date or donations by amount. The donations by amount would also be a way that you could see, who has donated a very large amount to your organization, and you'd be able to check off those additional member data questions as well. Now, if you are using ad hoc reporting, you can, of course, set up custom reports using our donation data fields. That would give you the option to not only, see all of the information that you want included in one single report because you can build custom reports, but you can also have that sent to you periodically. So if you anticipate that your donations are going to be through the roof this year, they're going to be really active, consider having that report sent to you on a regular basis so that you're able to keep up with those donations and keep track of them. And of course, we have plenty of tutorials and webinars available on ad hoc reporting. And it is something that you can test out on your site for free. I believe that the trial is a 30-day free trial. So if you are interested in giving ad hoc reporting a shot, consider using it as part of your Giving Tuesday campaign. Consider using all of those reporting capabilities to be able to track and monitor those donations and give it a test run. Now, we also talked about donor surveys. So let's take a look at some of the questions that I've asked within my donor survey and how I've set that up. Now, a donor survey is essential to figuring out why your donors came to you in the first place, which can help you form your strategy. And I've done that using our surveys module. So, for example, if you get a ton of non-member donations in a year because you went the route of crowdfunding, that seems like that might be something successful that you want to try again. So I have my donor survey that I've created for one-time donors. Now, you might want to consider creating separate surveys for different types of donors. You might want to create a separate survey for your corporate sponsors. Maybe you also want to create a survey for your crowdfunders to ask them what their experience was like, to get information on what might be more helpful for them in your next iteration of crowdfunding. But in this case, I've created this survey that is open to everyone. And if I take a look at the questions that I've created, I have created a question of why they bothered to donate in the first place. So I'm saying that maybe their response is going to be that their friend asked them to donate, or maybe they just donated because they're a member or they have a strong belief in the cause. So again, a lot of your donations, if you are going the route of crowdfunding, those donors may have only contributed because they knew the person who was asking. I'm guilty of that as well. I get a lot of requests from friends and family on social media or even just via email asking me to donate to a cause that's important to them. And because I know them, that cause just becomes important to me as well. We've also asked them how they donated with a quick question of, did they find the process to donate simple? So making sure that you are removing any barriers to donate, making sure that, if you are asking for donations, that your donation funds are absolutely available to non-members, they're visible on your public site, making sure that it's easy to access. I've also asked them if they were familiar with the impact, if they knew what the impact of their donation was. I've asked them if they support other causes. So maybe you're an organization who donates or who sets up funds to donate to different types of other nonprofits in your area. Maybe you want to see what's going to be the most successful based on your demographic, based on the members and non-members that are interested in your organization. So ask them what other types of causes they support. That might give you some ideas of the types of funds that you might want to start supporting in your community and where you might make the most impact. And then last, of course, I've asked if they would donate again. So again, the donor survey is such a huge part of the process, and it's really just going to allow you to harness the data that you're collecting from your members. It's really going to help you create that campaign that's going to be successful this year and next year. So remembering that you have all of those options available to you, we talked about the ways that you can keep track. Remember that you do have notes available for your people managers. So you're able to very simply put notes into the notes field. And you can, of course, run a report on all of the notes associated with those members. And you have our contact log. So if you're already using our contact log, that is fabulous. If you aren't and you're interested in our contact log, we did recently host a webinar to discuss the extra cost feature. So if that's something that you're interested in, maybe, giving a go for this year's Giving Tuesday, just be sure to take a look at that webinar and call our support team if that's a module that you want to activate on your site to help out with your donations. So remember that you have all of the tools that you need in order to have a successful Giving Tuesday. Everything that I did to create that crowdfunding kit and create that custom page and all of those emails, I either already had, because of course I'm using ClubExpress, or I was able to do with tools that I had just included maybe in my on my computer, or something that I was able to get for free. So don't be afraid to spend a little extra time this year. Remember that you're setting up a framework that you're going to be able to use now and in the future. So I kind of like to call it a set it and forget it strategy, where you set everything up now. It takes a handful of extra minutes to get this going, but every year after, you're going to have those processes in place and you're going to have that framework set up to be successful. Devin, how are we doing on questions?
We're doing pretty well. It looks like we've got two questions, mostly focusing around recurring donations. Someone asked if are non-members able to set up recurring donations?
Great question. So, right now, non members are unfortunately not able to set up recurring donations. And the reason for that is that with recurring donations, we have to have a saved credit card on file. Those credit cards are saved securely in the member's profile. And because your non members don't have a member profile, they don't have the ability to save that credit card. So, that would be a really great reason to encourage non-members to become a member with your organization, and even consider offering non-members a discount on their membership if they set up a recurring donation with your organization. There are a lot of ways that you can maybe create incentives or tactics to gain that membership, including gaining that recurring donation.
And then the other question about recurring donations was, is it possible for administrators to set up a recurring donation for another member? An administrator can set up the donation, but they cannot enter recurring payment information.
Okay. And that, of course, would be a security feature as well, that, we want to make sure that everyone's payment information is secure. So we can take a look at that and take a look into that question as well. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we hope that you have a successful Giving Tuesday. Bye, everyone.